Okay, folks, the most interesting or depressing thing I saw was what happened, and that became, I guess, it became viral, was the beheading of this poor Hindu tailor in Udaipur by two obviously Islamists, I would say. But this picturization is ISIS. Right? It's ISIS, that big whatever they call it, sword or knife, right? It's just ISIS. So ISIS is causing troubles, not just obviously is now seen to have arrived in India. It was earlier obviously is in Pakistan, and the reason why Saudis and the Emirates etc. have not come down so hard on us because of what Nupur Sharma did, but essentially because of the presence of ISIS and the Muslim Brotherhood in that region, right? But the juxtaposition of that is interesting, right? You see this, right? It's on top is a story about this beheading, and below, guess what? The Prime Minister is hugging the Emir of Emirates, right? Same day. अब ये सोचने वाली बात है, ये मुद्दा सोचने वाला कि क्या इसमें क्या is this a coincidence कि दोनों चीजें सेम, एक तरफ आपका प्राइम मिनिस्टर लैंड कर रहा है यूनाइटेड अरब एमिरेट्स में, वहाँ पर उनके जो हैं अमीर वो एयरपोर्ट पे आते हैं उनको मिलने के लिए, और इधर आपका आईसिस के स्टाइल में आपका गर्दन काटने का पहली बार हिंदुस्तान में ये सिलसिला होता है. और इज इट अबाउट राजस्थान and the government that out there is in opposition? Very interesting issues, because the timing is just too apt, too bad. Citing Prophet insult, 2 kill man on video, threatened PM, victim sought police cover after Prophet wrote PM meets UAE president, both underlying ties. Now this is the important part, right? Taylor murdered over insult to Islam, curfew in Udaipur areas. But why is this happening, right? Why they're meeting all these democracies? And the reason why we are getting a free pass is because there is a great regression, as Seema Sirohi writes, in all the democracy, right? So this is one in Washington. She writes, if only American women had as many rights as guns, but they don't in a country that seems to harbor a special fear of women and their autonomy. And let me just tell you, no matter Smriti Irani mouthing her little whatever homilies or women are much better off in India, it's bullshit. In India, women are treated like vassals. They've been treated like slaves for life, and that's the reason for the caste system. It stays there because of where it is, and that's the way you have all these Dalit girls who are lynched and raped out regularly. So for us to sit there and on a high horse just doesn't make any sense. Joe Biden called Friday's 6-3 ruling by the conservative supermajority a tragic error and urged states to enact laws to protect access to abortion. Tragic it was, but error it was not. It was always part of the plan. The impatient and ambitious right-wing justices, 3 of them planted by Donald Trump, were eager to flex their muscles and stamp out a constitutional right guaranteed by the same Supreme Court 50 years ago. They did it with full intention and knowledge. And this is really the problem for all of us, even in India. America's culture wars growing more intense over time and raise a question for the outside world: can a country so divided at home effectively lead abroad? And this is exactly the same point that is happening in India. And this is another one from Seema Sirohi. On Trump's last stand, his own attorney general pressed him, calling the claims of election fraud bullshit. But none of it mattered because Trump wasn't interested in the facts. He knew he could push a falsehood and his base would rally around him. Same thing happening in India, folks. Lies and lies and lies, right? The hearings are the closest Trump will come to a trial for his acts of subversion. So far, the prosecution has made a good case, but the jury, the American public, is out. Same thing with the Indian public, right? Some don't care and others remain oblivious thanks to the balkanized media landscape. There is no conversation between the two silos, which seem sealed shut for now. God, that sounds so familiar, right? Culture wars at the heart of US identity. As midterms approach, Biden faces battles tied to questions of identity that can reshape US's social fabric, but his differing approach to each of them highlights a larger liberal crisis, including in India. The second broad set of issues relates to education, both in terms of curriculum and inclusion. The Republicans have begun to campaign at the state level to portray the teachings of racism within the broad brush of critical race theory. This allows them to tap white anxieties about how the history of slavery and oppression is taught, and in an act of political chutzpah paints whites as the victims. And guess this is exactly what is happening with the Dalits and then being wiped out, and Mayawati is playing right into them. What a sellout, right? This identity-related battles are a reminder in some ways of the predicament Indian liberals face when fighting the right. What do you take up? What issues do you take up? What do you avoid? even at the cost of ideological compromise to prevent an electoral backlash? Is there a risk of losing out on both the dominant communities who think you are too soft on minorities, and minorities who feel you haven't gone far enough to raise their issues? It's exactly what happened in UP, right? As Biden's experience shows, there is no easy answer and easy strategy. Fighting remains silent, retreating comes with its own risk force, and remember that for all you intelligent people out there.
एक्सटेंशन खातर वो धरना प्रदर्शन करा कर दे, एक्सटेंशन की वो मांग करा कर दे। अगर भाई ने 6 महीने हमारा टेन्योर बढ़ा जाए, और आज दूसरी तरफ राज में बैठ के आज वो बात कहने लग रहे हैं कि ये योजना बड़ी अच्छी है। मैं एक बात पूछना चाहूँ, अगर भाई जिसका जी करे वो आ जाओ, या किसी वाहियात बात करने लग रहे हो। देश हमारा वीके सिंह का कौन है, यो देश हमारा प्रधानमंत्री का कौन है, यो देश हमारा कि राजनेताओं का कौन है। हमारी जिम्मेदारी बने, ये हमारा घर रोटी पूरी है, मेरी मानू का खांदा हो तो खा लेना टाड़ा कर। भाई मेरा घर वो है, उड़े नहीं खाऊंगा तो कड़े खाऊंगा। यो देश हमारा है, इस देश में जब हमारी सुविधा के काम नहीं होंगे तो और क्या पाकिस्तान में होंगे? जो तो यह बात बिल्कुल ही वाहियात था उनकी, यह बात कहनी घंटी तो। और दूसरी बात, ये क्या वाहियात बात करने लग रहे हैं सारे ये राजनेता, समझने की जरूरत है। समझो एक बात को, अगर उनकी नीयत है नौकरी देने की, आज पूरे देश में लगभग 30 लाख रोजगार पद खाली पड़े हैं। सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट की बात करूं, हरियाणा की बात करूं, मैं सेक्रेटरी की भर्ती कद लकड़ी थी, पटवारी की भर्ती कद लकड़ी थी, उन्हें भर दो ने। इतना ठाठी मानस है तो उन्हें भरने का काम करो। अगर रोजगार देने की नीयत है, नीयत में खोट है इनका, इनकी नीयत में है अंबानी अडानी के घर बना, इनकी नीयत में है पूंजीपतिया के घर बना, इनकी नीयत में है गरीब मानस का एक एक बूंद खून चूस का उनकी मतलब बड़ी थैली भर देना। तो नीयत में खोट है इनकी, नौकरी देने का इनकी।
So as you noted, even in the US, as I read out that article, it all starts in education, right? And that's the revision of history, which is the basically the hideout for the scoundrel, right? Textbook and the nationals. Textbook revision slashes portions in history on Islamic rulers of India. 1,000 years. How do you do that? No idea. From emergency to Gujarat riot, lessons of past deleted from textbooks of future. That's kind of interesting. Gujarat riots, you did that, and I guess that was because it kind of shows our PM in bad light. But and I guess as a compensatory, they took emergency out, but that didn't stop our Pradhan Sevak from bringing it up on foreign shores. How can anyone change history? Nitish on Shah's remark, he's right. Should present history in true form. Who can stop us? Says Shah. I guess nobody can stop you, but true form, that itself is an oxymoron. BJP ally JDU slams move. History cannot be reversed. Absolutely true. Eventually it'll come back and bite your butt. Right? And this is the backsliding that continues. India joins G7, 4 others to protect free speech online and offline. And just when you're doing that, you have this guy, Zubair, sent to 4-day custody. Lawyer says image was from film. Now, this is unbelievable. Image of 2018, bought out now. The reason why it's bought out now, because the alternate news guy fact-checked what Nupur Sharma had said and bought it up, right? And this is what we call freedom of speech. Twitter blocks over 80 post handles after center's orders. And backsliding continues of democracy. No more demolitions without process of law, SC tells UP. But Apex Court to hear petition against UP demolition today. HC seeks MP government reply over demolition drive. But it continued. And you have continued this assault on democracy. Congress says police entered headquarters, beat up workers, cops deny, BJP hits out. What do you expect BJP to do? And the other crazy stuff that's happening in our democracy is Maharashtra. मैं तो अपना मेरा जो सिर है ना विदेश और देश में शर्म से बिल्कुल झुक जाता है। जो ये क्या हो रहा है महाराष्ट्र, क्या इतनी डेस्परेशन इस सरकार, सेंट्रल सरकार की वो सरकार को उठाने की, समझ से बाहर है भाई साहब, समझ से बाहर है। Shinde hints at Maharashtra return as Fadnavis beats government looking for security. And what does Julio Ribeiro write? Sena in search of moorings. But what's important for Shinde is what he doesn't have is this. The foot soldiers of the Sena, even after Shinde's revolt, are still with Thackeray. They are currently reeling from the shock. It is to be seen how they react when the full import of what will happen if the Thackeray cease to head Sena kicks in. A Sena without Thackeray at the helm will not be the same. The process of disintegration will begin. The street vendors and a lot of those who operate Mumbai's underbelly are known to have blessings of the Thackerays. Many of these young men hailing from what the Marxist terms the lumpen proletariat will be forced to find new moorings. And what those new moorings will be, nobody knows. But सारे मेरा तो एक तो हंसी आती है एक तरफ से जिस प्रकार से हर रोज ये मुद्दा महाराष्ट्र का बदलता है, और दूसरी तरफ बस जस्ट शर्म आती है कि किस तरह हमारी संविधान की धज्जियां उड़ रही हैं। जय।
नमस्कार, मैं हूं अजय भारद्वाज और आप इसमें ग्राउंड मीडिया देख रहे हैं। सभी को पता है अग्निपथ योजना, जी हाँ, जिसके नाम में ही अग्नि है, जिसके नाम में ही आग, जिस योजना के नाम में अग्नि है, उसी को लेकर के पूरे देश के अंदर एक बार आग ही आग और धुआं ही धुआं हो गया था। क्योंकि बिहार से लेकर के हरियाणा तक लगातार अग्निपथ योजना का विरोध लगातार होने लग रहा, क्योंकि रेलों के अंदर आग लगा दी गई थी, बसें फूंक दी गई थी। हालांकि हम बार बार अपील कर रहे थे उन युवाओं से कि इस प्रकार की घटना न करें, इस प्रकार से सार्वजनिक संपत्ति को नुकसान न पहुँचाए, क्योंकि अपने देश की, अपने राष्ट्र की संपत्ति है। फिर भी युवाओं से अपील बार बार हम कर रहे हैं। इस वक्त एक फौजी की बहन है, पूनम कंडेला गांव की दबंग बहू पूनम रेड्डू के नाम से प्रसिद्ध, सोशल मीडिया के ऊपर काफ़ी चर्चा में रही है। किसान आंदोलन के दौरान भी एक फौजी की बहन, इसको पता आखिरकार एक फौजी कैसे बना जाता है। पूनम जी, सबसे पहले तो राम राम।
राम राम जी।
अग्निपथ योजना, जिसके नाम में ही अग्नि है, क्या कहना चाहेंगे? इस अग्नि से फ़ायदा होगा या फिर नुकसान होगा, बताइएगा।
नुकसान तो देखो सर आम दिखने लगे। अगर फायदा होता तो हम इतने में युवा साथ इस चीज़ का विरोध नहीं करे थे। और विरोध भी खुद मैं एक मतलब खुद हरियाणा पुलिस की फिजिकल तक भी पैर रखी है। मतलब मेरा भी दिन रात मेहनत करने के बाद क्या हुआ है। और इसकी जो आर्मी की फिजिकल दे हुए बालक शायद 4-5 साल ट्रैक पे इतनी मेहनत कर दिन रात। घर के भी नु कहते कि बेटा तू मेहनत कर, घर के काम छोड़ दे। माँ मतलब खुद नु मेरा भाई जब मेहनत कराया करता, मतलब को तैयारी कराया करता, मेरी माँ ने कहती भाई तेरा 2 किलो दूध नहीं आ रहा है। माँ हमने थोड़ा मिल जाता, लेकिन उसने पूरा मिला करता। लेकिन राज क्या कर दिया इस सरकार ने, इस घटिया सरकार ने। मतलब 4 साल में बालक मेहनत करने के बाद दोबारा तो फिर घर आया जाकर फिर के नौकरी करने का वाय का जवार भी नहीं कट दिया बालक पर सूत्री डाल। क्योंकि 4 साल और मेहनत करेगा, 1-1.5 साल उसकी और ट्रेनिंग होगी, और बेचारे के गोड्डे न रगड़वा देगा, उसका ग्रीस खत्म हो जाएगा। और या तो सरकार का नहीं इसने के मेरा भी दर्द क्यों होया करे, मतलब फौज का दर्द भी क्यों हो, ओढ़ जाएगा दर्द क्यों हुआ है। और मेहनत करके ये तो सिर्फ एशिया में बैठे हैं और इन्हें अपने गुलछरे उठाए, दर्द तो उसने बेरा है। और आर्मी में उसे का बालक जाओगे तो किसान का बालक जाओगा का मजदूर का। ये मंत्री एमएलए के बालक तो सीधे का तो बड़े बड़े बिजनेसमैन करेंगे क्या, हमारा बर्गिया का खून पियोगा, और इनका कोई कम में को नहीं।
So as I told you earlier, the videos that I played up and that's coming down is about Jharkhand, and it's just amazing. In Haryana, we have that lady down below who's the sister of a soldier explains what the aspirations of a Haryana youth is, right? और तो कहता है कि छोटे होते ही वो क्या कहते हैं, फौज क्या ही सोचता है। And what we have here, we made a big mistake, right? And no matter what our general, I mean, I actually don't think the chiefs know much, right? Or they actually believe what they say. 3 wings of a joint office. The reform needs stakeholders connect, clear communication and aligned system. Okay. The root problem is reluctance among principal stakeholders and potential beneficiaries to take ownership and move the pieces forward. Obviously, he's let it out of the bag early at night, early in the morning, late at night. Nobody knows what was coming, right? Because you know that this was not discussed, is because you know that the CDS has very clearly said that he was against this, and he was more for him it was more important to increase the age of retirement, because post 35 the guy is still pretty young, right? Take the Agnipath initiative. Here the principal stakeholder is a soldier, not the officer cadre. It was thus important that the scheme be explained and doubts clarified to serving Javans before its rollout, because the Javan is the first point of call for military aspirants in India. It's rural recruiting grounds. So a site of discourse and discussion should not just have been the hallowed halls of South Block, but units and battalions where officers and soldiers interface, where all the pre-announcement preparatory work ought to have been done in settings such as unit, the bars, etc. Important, right? The Agnipath initiative, for example, was sought to be explained in various ways, but it didn't anticipate the backlash caused by the revelation that it would be the main entry route of Javans into the military. That's what caused all the problem, right? I wish they'd gone for both, right? The preparatory phase of any reform initiative is important. Identification of stakeholders, reaching out to them and including their feedback is a process that can only be tested against the stakeholders' response to a subsequent rollout, right? This is a problem from a reform perspective, however, starts when the fallout starts to negatively impact the rollout, like it happened with the farm laws, which is where investing in building credible reform stakeholders who take ownership of the policy and adopt it as their own may hold the key. And here is the problem. He's nailed it. This Pranab Dhalsanta. They did not take the soldier into account. They did not talk to the guys in the village. These are the people who are going into the army. Now there is enough news suggesting that, I mean, there was this news that the chief of the air staff suggesting that 48,000 or 15,000 or some lags have applied for Air Force. And then there's another piece coming back that these are all fake RSS applications. What is the truth? Even if they're not fake, if these guys are untrained and they're just applying just because the job's there, they're not physically fit, chiefs are going to pay for it. India will pay for it. Jai Hind.